Alright, yeah, how's it going, guys? So, this week we got some brand new news coming out of Wizards of the Coast about their brand new game, Magic the Gathering Arena. We finally got to see what it is and how it works. I'm going to be running through my first impressions, an overall look at the new game as well, and some of my concerns that I have with the new game as well, because it is certainly not without its faults. Alright guys, let's get into the meat of the announcement then. So, Magic the Gathering Arena is Wizards of the Coast's newest attempt to try and compete with Hearthstone. I think it's pretty clear from the gameplay that they've shown off and all of the features that they've got available that this is another attempt at them trying to compete with Hearthstone. So as we well know, the Magic Duels was an intro version of Magic the Gathering. It contained lots of restrictions. It was very focused on beginner and casual level Magic the Gathering players, and I think it was probably one of their attempts to compete with Hearthstone as well, but we all know that didn't really turn out too well. Magic Duels was free to play, just as Hearthstone technically is as well, and Magic the Gathering Arena is their new attempt at this. So it is a new free to play Magic the Gathering game, all card based. There's nothing gimmicky about what they're showing off here, I wouldn't say anyway. It's going to be focused on standard only as well, so it will be releasing all of the cards that are currently in standard. So they have confirmed that Magic Arena will not have any card restrictions whatsoever, unlike Magic Duels. So this was supposed to be a replacement for it, but it looks like they're actually going to take it a little step forward and put it a little bit closer to Magic Online in terms of its structure. So there's no longer the restriction of 1 mythic, 2 rares, 3 uncommons, 4 commons anymore. You can have 4 of any card, and every single card in standard will be available on Magic Arena. What will happen when sets rotate is a question I don't think they've answered, so we'll have to see on that one. They've announced that Magic Arena will be released on PC initially, and I would imagine, because it's going into closed beta as well, they do want to do a lot of testing on the game before they release it out to the rest of the public. I'd expect that the closed beta in its entirety would only be on PC, just so that they could refine the gameplay and make sure that it works as intended. They have kind of given away an impression that they're going to be putting it on a lot of other platforms. They're making it in Unity, which is very flexible in terms of the platforms that you can put it on. Once I get around to showing you guys the board state and how that looks, you can see that the user interface is very tablet-based as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see this game on consoles, tablets, mobile, on anything really that will run it. So without further ado, let's head on over to the footage that they released for Magic the Gathering Arena. As you can see, this is the new board state. You can see why it looks very much like Hearthstone. It's got this lovely little design. I imagine this changes between sets as well, because right now it's very much a kind of Ixalan designed board state, but as we go into different ones I imagine that changes up. So at the bottom there you can see our hand, as well as just slightly above that the phases and our life total as well. Those phases I do believe are the ones that the game does not skip by default. As I mentioned, that you do have to put stops on in order to get your draw steps and your upkeep stops and stuff like that. So those are probably the ones that the game doesn't skip. So that's probably going to be probably upkeep, first main, second main, end step, cleanup. That's probably what those are going to be anyway. You can see below that though, as we look at our hand, that they've gone for this kind of compacted look. So you'll see in a second when they play the cards that that is actually how the cards are going to appear on the battlefield as well. They seem to have cut off the text, the card's text at the bottom there. This is me only zooming into the gameplay footage. I've not actually cropped out any of the gameplay footage that they showcased. So it does appear on a first glance that actually the card's abilities and text and things like that is actually cut off to the viewer unless the person playing is actually going to hover over the cards, which I'm not actually very happy about, to be perfectly honest. As somebody who's quite forgetful and maybe doesn't see a line of play unless it's sticking right in front of his face, not having a card's effects available right in front of your screen to see what each card does is going to be a little bit annoying, I would say. When it's on the board, I don't think it'll matter too much, but in your hand, it feels like when you're making the optimal play that you should know everything about your hand. And if you're not seeing some of the text on some of the cards, then maybe you're not taking that into account when you're making your plays, which might hurt you in the long run as far as gameplay is concerned. I'm not too happy with the look of the hand. They have confirmed, though, that you can move cards around in your hand as well. So I personally like to have all of my cards sorted in mana cost order with my lands at the left. So that is something that I can do, so I can mess around with my cards as I would do in paper or on MTGO. And they've also said as well that your opponent does get to see you moving the cards around in your hand. So that is a little bit of information that if you care to know about it and to analyse it, you could maybe tell which cards your opponent's about to play. So if they knew that I was putting all my lands to the left-hand side, they'd know that one pile of cards on my left-hand side is probably going to be all lands, and therefore they only have to worry about the 3 on the right, for example. That kind of thing. It's all bluffing and psychological stuff, but it's a really nice touch. I actually really appreciate them doing that. So I mentioned that they'd been messing around with the card structure and stuff like that to make the board a little bit more compacted, but they do have an expanded look at it, of course, so that when you are looking at the card, it is just a Magic card. So as you can see, they've given us 2 examples here. You've got essentially the exact same structure as a normal Magic card. It's just that when it goes onto the board, it looks a little bit square. All of the abilities are gone. The mana cost might be slightly out of sight. Anything like that. It's going to be a little interesting because the mana cost can be quite important to a card as well. If you take Fatal Push for an example, that card cares a lot about the mana cost of cards on the board, and in its compacted mode it doesn't actually show you that mana cost unless you hover over it. So yet again, that's another little bit of important information that they're not necessarily putting on the board for us. But this is going to be closed beta, and they are very much interested in all kinds of feedback from the community as well. So it's going to be very much a closed thing until they're very happy with it. So I would imagine that lots of people would complain about this, and that will get fixed. So they've also added in a lot of finer details to some of the cards. Like, I think most of the rares and mythics they've mentioned are going to have special enter the battlefield animations. So Carnage Tyrant, as you can see, does a little dinosaur effect. It's kind of cool in a way. I've seen a little bit of a mixed response as far as that's concerned. Many Magic players on MTGO, for example, were talking on Twitter about hoping that you can turn this kind of feature off. There's also voiced cards as well for Planeswalkers. Jace is going to get his own little voice actor, and apparently that will speak every single time you use one of his abilities. I'm not sure if that's going to get annoying. I don't suppose it will, because most Hearthstone cards do that, and I don't know if many Hearthstone players really do get angry when half of their cards scream random sentences every single time you play them. Especially in Gwent. I play Gwent a lot, and there's a lot of cards that speak a lot of things. It doesn't really bother me. They've also mentioned that they want to make sure that this new game gives full control to all of the players. So as you know, Magic is a very strategic game. There are a lot of things going on, and you need to be able to respond to a lot of things at very specific times. So they have actually added in this priority pausing system. And what that essentially does, for MTGO players, what that essentially does is add a stop on every single marker. So untap, upkeep, draw, first main, second main, etc, etc, beginning of combat. Every single stop is then enabled for you to be able to cycle through them one at a time. So if you've got a very specific play that you want to make, maybe it's coming down to the wire, you want to make sure that absolutely everything goes your way, they've added in this new feature. It is something that you have to enable on the fly as well, so it's not going to be available 24/7. I assume that you'll be able to keep it on at all times. Many players are a little bit iffy about this situation because it's kind of all or nothing. You know, you either have the duels level of priority control or you have the MTGO level of priority control, and many MTGO players are just probably going to leave it on 24/7, who knows. But I suppose at the same time, that is good to have that option. You could either go full MTGO mode or full Magic Duels mode. It is a game, after all, that is trying to merge the two communities together, and I think it's probably going to do that quite well. So let's talk about some of the things that we maybe didn't see in the demo but were maybe inferred upon, or that they're more business focused anyway. So the first thing I want to talk about is the timer system that they've got available. So in MTGO you've just got a strict chess clock type of timer. Everybody's got 20 plus minutes, and throughout the match you use those 20 minutes, and if you run out of time you lose. In Magic Duels you've got a per turn timer as well, so it's like 2 minutes or something like that, I'm not quite sure. Just for each turn, so between turns you get 2 minutes. In this one, I think they're going for a more Magic Duels focused timer. So they've said that you've got X amount of time per turn, but if you don't use all of that time in your turn, then it is banked, and you can carry that over to the next round. So for example, if they give you 60 seconds per turn, you only use 30 seconds of your turn and end it, you've got 90 seconds in your next turn. So it allows you to bank up those early moves where you're just playing a land and pass, and you've got this time banked up later down the line for when it really counts. So all of your key decisions where you've really got to take the time to stop, look at the board, and make your decision, you've got that time banked up. This does actually give me some concerns though, on the other hand. Although I do like the system as a whole, if we're playing things like a combo deck, for example, Paradox Engine, if you watch my MTGO stuff, you'll know that that combo is very fun to play, but it does take a little time to pull off. And if we haven't banked up enough time in the turn, I'm wondering whether or not combo is going to be really viable in Magic Arena. I'm sure some people are cheering because they don't like combos. If we play MTGO, for example, some people don't like combos so much that they force you to play through them, which for me is not a problem. I enjoy playing the combo. You know, if you're going to play a combo deck, you should enjoy actually doing it. But the problem is not that you enjoy doing it, it's the fact that you're going to have this timer to work against. And if you had the MTGO timer, you can see quite clearly you've got like 20 minutes to pull it off. You're never going to time out unless you've been really slow throughout the game. But in a more Magic Duels focused timer system, if you looked at my Anointed Procession combo deck that uses Scions to generate infinite mana and stuff like that, that's really time consuming. And a lot of the time we ended up running out of time just before we could get the combo going. There are a few occasions where that happened, and this looks like it might be somewhat of a similar situation. So I'm slightly concerned about how the timer's going to work in this game. Hopefully they figure it out. I know that when we get to the closed beta though, if they are taking player feedback, there is of course going to be a group of combo players that are going to be very concerned about the lack of time that they've got available to pull off their combo. As for game modes, as I mentioned earlier, this is going to be a standard focused game, so it's going to have every single card in standard ready to play, 4 copies of absolutely everything. They're going to be adding in a ranked ladder, so you'll be able to test your skills against players who are hopefully going to be matched appropriately with you along that ranked ladder. Maybe you'll get some rewards for higher tiers. If it's anything like Gwent, the higher rank you get, the more rewards you get. You get some cosmetic features for your avatar, you get extra kegs in that game. So maybe they'll do the same situation where the higher the rank you are, the more booster packs you'll get, something like that. Nothing of that has been confirmed, but that would be something that I would be very interested in. They've also confirmed 100% that the game will eventually have draft and sealed available. I assume that it'll only contain standard sets available. As for how you buy packs, I assume there's going to be some sort of in-game currency that you can unlock it with. You might be able to buy packs with real-world currency. I'm not entirely sure. They've not really talked about the business side of things so much, and I'll get onto that soon. But having standard, draft, and sealed in the game, as well as digital-only formats, is something that they mentioned. I'm not sure what that could be. It could be some sort of single-player campaign, perhaps. I'm not sure. If you have any speculation on what that might be, I'd love to hear it in the comment section below. As for a release date, they've not actually given us any specific concrete time for when we'll actually get access to the closed beta, or at least even when the closed beta will end and everybody will get access to it. They have said that for the closed beta, they are going to hand out priority access to anybody who was a Magic Duels customer who had their CSID number attached to their Wizards account. Anybody who attends pre-release on MTGO or in paper as well will also get priority access to the closed beta. Unfortunately, they've also confirmed that anybody who has got access to this won't be able to make content for it, so I won't be able to stream Magic Arena or make content for you guys, unfortunately, until they give the green light, and rest assured, when they do that, I will absolutely be flooding this channel full of Arena content for you guys, because it just looks... I'm very impressed with it, let's just say that. So expect content from me the day that they allow us to make content for it. I'm very excited to be able to do that. I will possibly be able to do some impressions videos and things like that without using the arena content, my impressions of it so far, because I would hope at least that I will get access to the closed beta. So I don't want to leave you guys in the dark as to the progress of that game, but I won't be able to make footage for you guys, unfortunately. As for the closed beta's time, they've not actually given us a specific date, but I would imagine releasing roughly in the next 2 or 3 months, give or take, probably the lesser of that. I would imagine at least before Christmas we'll get access to that. As for when the open beta is concerned though, that is completely unknown at this time. So before I wrap up, I just want to walk through a couple of my concerns I have with the game. I will say before I get into all of these, some of them are a little bit nitpicky. They're not actually really big issues. Some of them are, of course, but some of them are so tiny, and it's just because I do really like the game and I want to see it succeed. But these are some concerns that I do have with the game that I'd love for them to fix before the game comes out of closed beta. So the first one is the tapping of the cards. It doesn't bother me so much, but when we were watching the announcement, there was a couple of people in my chat not very happy that the tapping isn't actually turning 90 degrees, it's turning like 7, which I can see the issue with that. The problem with not tapping full 90 degrees is that it's not going to be blatantly obvious that a card has been tapped. It does, of course, have the tap symbol on it, but, you know, if you're kind of just tunnel visioning, then you'll see these cards that are only slightly slanted, and maybe you'll consider them untapped in your own head. I'm a little bit weird like that. I can get into that kind of mindset, which is a problem, of course. It's only a little thing. I'm not too bothered about it in the slightest, to be honest, but I can see the issues about it. As I mentioned before as well, the timer system is going to be something that I am a little bit worried about. As a combo-centric player, I do very much enjoy my combo decks, so I'm a little worried that the timer system's not going to facilitate combo players, or even certain control players as well, because when I play control, I like to take my time as well. It's the way that I usually win, is that I use the timer to its fullest extent. So hopefully they are a little bit more specific about how the timer works, and they're a little bit more lenient with the timer as well, to make sure that everybody gets enough time to do whatever they need to do during their turn. Another thing as well, the cards being cut off at the bottom of the screen for your player's hand. I'm hoping that that's just a cropping from their announcement video. I didn't crop the bottom of those cards off. That is something that is available on their overlay, essentially. So I'm hoping that that is not the case. I'm hoping that we do have access to all of the information in our hand without having to hover over it. If you do hover over it, of course, then it does show you all of the information. So it's going to be one of those, yet again, those little nitpicks, but I think it's going to be a little bit annoying. Another one as well is how the stack is going to manage really, really long and massive triggers as well. So some infinite combos go off with about 100 triggers on the stack. We've seen the stack in the game demo, and it looks good. It really does. But I want to know what it looks like when there are 100 plus draw a card triggers on the stack or something like that. I'm hoping that the user interface as it stands can handle that kind of combo, because that is almost guaranteed to be some kind of issue. PianoJester, for example, has a lot of double triggers, and if those double triggers and have flickers and things like that, then pretty soon the stack starts to fill up, and I'm hoping that they've really thought about that and can at least show off the stack in some way that doesn't look stupid and horrible. The pricing structure as well is also something I'm a little concerned about. It is going to be free to play, as they've mentioned a fair few times, and it is going to use in-game currency. So I'm imagining when you win, you get a certain amount of gold, and with that gold you buy packs. For standard drafts, I would imagine as well, you could either buy packs with in-game currency, or you could buy it with real-world currency. The concern that I'm going to have, really, is how far off is Magic Arena's price structure for standard. How far off is that going to be for MTGO's standard? If it costs me maybe $10 to $15 per deck every single time, I'm not sure how that's going to be really viable as a free-to-play model. If it's going to be 10 to 15 quid's worth of cards that you have to buy in order to make a deck, how long is that going to take you to grind out enough cards to build that for free? I just don't know if that's going to be a viable option, really. So I'm not sure how well the free-to-play structure of this is going to play into MTGO's usual finance structure, because it's going to compete with MTGO, this is known. Just the same as MTGO competes with paper, there is the same kind of market and they fluctuate together in certain situations, but MTGO is obviously ultimately a lot cheaper. I'm wondering whether or not the MTGO prices in Standard are going to drop, because Arena's now running Standard, and maybe the price of cards on Magic Arena are going to be slightly raised. I'm not entirely sure what they're going to do there, but that is a concern, and I'd like them to be a little bit more clear with the pricing structure and the rewards that you get for winning games and ranking up and things like that. Speaking of the prices of Standard and things like that to do with the structure of MTGO, they've been very, very adamant that this is going to be a Standard-focused game. So the question that I have is what's going to happen to my cards after rotation? Rotation comes around, you know, a fairly slow amount of time. You know, you've got plenty of time to play with your cards. I have no problem with how quickly Standard rotates. I'm going to have a lot of time to play with these cards, but I'm a little worried that after I invest my time into building up my Standard collection, when rotation comes around, that my cards are just going to disappear, because they've been very clear that this is just going to be Standard. There's not going to be any Modern, so perhaps there's going to be a Frontier format for the cards that have rotated out of Standard, because Frontier is a format, for those who don't know, that is kind of the midpoint between Modern and Standard. It didn't really take off in paper or on MTG or anything like that, but maybe Magic Arena is going to be the home for Frontier. We'll have to see about that. It also doesn't look like it's going to be able to support Two-Headed Giant or 4-player free-for-all. These are match types that I do actually quite enjoy. I'm not going to be insanely sad to see them go, mostly because, of course, Magic as a whole is very focused on one-on-one kind of play. But I have, over the time streaming Magic Duels for you guys, had a lot of fun doing Two-Headed Giant, and I would really like for that format to come back as well. There's no reason why it couldn't show up, but if I'm looking at the board state that they're showing us here, and they're going for this really compact look, I'm really struggling to see how in this board state it would cramp up with 4 players on the screen. I think it would be just a little bit too much. The cards would be a little too small, and being able to understand what's going on the board, I think it'll just look a little bit too silly. That's the reason why I don't think that Two-Headed Giant or free-for-all is going to be a thing in Arena, just because the size of the board just doesn't match what we need to do on Two-Headed Giant. If you look at Magic Duels as well, if you play too many lands, then they actually start merging with your teammates' lands as well, which is a problem, and I don't see how this game is going to be any different from that, unfortunately. Overall, though, I think the first impressions are looking really good. It seems like everybody who has seen Magic Arena is actually quite hyped for the game as well. A lot of MTGO players that I've seen in a lot of different communities are quite excited to get their hands on Magic Arena, which I think is really important. Magic Duels players as well, I think, will feel right at home with this new version. I do believe that this is going to be the successor for Magic Duels, and many players should feel excited for this version. It does, of course, have its issues, but what game doesn't at the end of the day? This is going to be a decent enough replacement for Magic Duels, and I'm very happy with the outcome of this. The priority system as well, giving us full priority, is something that I always wish they'd have done in Duels. There's been many updates where certain cards in Magic Duels needed an upkeep or something like that. There would have been an opportunity to use that, which Magic Duels never accommodated for those players, so they're going to feel a little bit happier as well, knowing that there is full control back into Magic Arena as well, ready to play in a more competitive but casual style yet again. I also think it kind of does have a chance to compete with Hearthstone. Will it actually overtake Hearthstone? Almost certainly not, but will it compete alongside it? I think it definitely will. This looks like a really nice Hearthstone ripoff, is what I'll say, with a Magic the Gathering priority system and things like that. It's got the full engine ready to play as well. So it is going to play exactly like Magic the Gathering does, and not slightly like Magic the Gathering does, which Magic Duels is guilty of in certain respects. So yes, I'm very happy with this game. I do hope you guys are also very much hyped for the game, and I certainly will be making content for this when it becomes available for us to stream and record. And I want to know what you guys think of the game in the comment section below as well. What do you think that the digital-only format's going to be? Do you like the look of the cards and the state of the game as it stands? Are you going to be getting into the closed beta yourselves? All of these questions, I'd love to hear all of your feedback as well. It's really cool to speculate on this kind of thing, and if one of us gets into the closed beta and another doesn't, then the person who doesn't should be at least be able to give some feedback as to what they thought so they could pass it along. So I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comment section below. As always guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to make this video for you, and if you did enjoy the content, then it really helps me out a great deal if you want to like and subscribe, especially subscribe if you want to see some Magic Arena content, because it will almost certainly be played on the channel. I'm very much hyped for this game. Alright guys, don't forget to hit that little bell icon as well, and you'll get notifications when I release future videos. I do hope you've enjoyed anyway, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.